Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Oaks Countdown. Nicole Russo in Lexington, Kentucky, and Dan Illman in our New York studio, taking a look at the prospective field based on points for the May 3rd Philly Classic, which is limited to a field of 14 starters, plus also eligibles who can draw in by scratch time. We'll take a look at that current points list, and the big news this morning from Churchill Downs is that Serengeti Empress, off a sharp work this morning and with no signs of bleeding, has been confirmed as an entrant for the Oaks. Not only locks the field down further for those still scoreboard watching, but I think also locks in the pace scenario a little bit.
It certainly does, and the connections of horses like Jaywalk and others that like to be close to the pace, a little bit disappointed. They didn't want to see Serengeti Empress and her blazing speed in here. We saw her rate the last time she was at Churchill Downs in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, conceding the lead to Jaywalk. That's not going to happen in the Oaks if she breaks well. She's going to the front.
Yeah, and she very much likes Churchill Downs, had that sharp graded stakes win prior to coming into the juvenile fillies there, while using her speed. So I think they're going to go back to what works with her. We mentioned Jaywalk. Jaywalk expected to work, turn in her final Oaks Breeze Friday morning at Keeneland before shipping over there. It's the same pattern that John Service followed a couple of years ago with Catherine Sophia off her placing in the Ashland training at Keeneland, moving over to Churchill the week of the race. I do want to take a quick look at a couple of fillies who are graded stakes placed this year, maybe knocking on the door a little bit, who are a couple of the final horses into the field based on points, both very well-bred horses. And Positive Spirit, we're going to watch her powerful victory in the Demoiselle last fall at Aqueduct, one of the best pedigrees in this race, by Classic Sire Pioneer of the Nile, the late Classic Sire Pioneer, out of graded stakes winner Above Perfection, who is the dam of Kentucky Derby winner Always Dreaming, and grade 1 winning juvenile filly Hot Dixie Chick. Dan, this filly has sort of knocked at the door a little bit this year, was most recently second in the Gazelle. Do you think the Demoiselle was an aberration, or that she could round back into form?
I'm beginning to be concerned that the Demoiselle is an aberration. Right after the race was completed, I thought it was a superior effort and that she was a top Oaks contender. She has been dull in both of her starts. She improved last time out in the Gazelle, and I wonder if it was getting back to 1 1/8. You mentioned this pedigree. This is a classic pedigree with Always Dreaming here. The 9 furlongs might be the great equalizer for Positive Spirit, but I am a little bit concerned that she has yet to get back to that race. The Fairgrounds effort was an absolute disaster, and last time out, I just couldn't see much of an excuse. She got a nice easy lead, and she was no match for Always Shopping. But again, she wants the distance. And that's half the battle for a lot of these fillies in the Oaks.
Well, I think so, and she's certainly going to have some pace up front to run at now. And, she is an April filly. She could be rounding back into that form in her 3rd start of the year. The other filly that I want to take a quick peek at here is Flor de Lamar. Tisnow filly, debuted in California in January to much fanfare. The word was out on her as we're watching this sharp debut win. Obviously around 1 turn, and she hasn't come back to run as well as this at all. She was recently second in the Santa Anita Oaks last out to Bellafina, who's going to be the undisputed Oaks favorite. But based on her pedigree, I have serious doubts about her legitimate ability to run 2 turns. And, that was a short field in the Santa Anita Oaks.
I think that's a very fair point about the pedigree. A lot of folks are just going to look at Tisnow up top, a 2 times Breeders' Cup Classic winner, and say, well, of course Flor de Lamar is going to love 1 1/8. But that's only half the equation. The dam was a grade 3 stakes winning dirt sprinter. The second dam was stakes placed in middle distances, 8.5 furlongs on the turf. I wonder about Flor de Lamar going 2 turns, and from a Beyer speed figure perspective, she is just slow. The 81 Beyer speed figure earned in the Santa Anita Oaks when no match for Bellafina is the best she's earned in her career. Patrick's really rushed this horse. She's run 3 times this year. She has no 2-year-old foundation. I think it's a big ask for her to step up and win the Oaks off only those 3 races.
I think it is a very big ask, and a very well-bred filly. I think we might hear from her later on in races like the Acorn or the Test, but I just don't think that going the 9 furlongs, as you said, that's the big question, is going to be her game at this point in her career.
No, I think it's going to be a gigantic ask for her to go 1 1/8 miles, especially since I think she likes to be close to the pace. We saw the debut where she was a pace-pressing winner. She was up close to the pace in the Santa Anita Oaks her first time around 2 turns. And as you mentioned at the top, if Serengeti Empress is in this race, if Jaywalk is in this race, Flor de Lamar might be chasing the fastest pace she's ever experienced at the longest distance she's ever raced.
Yeah, certainly the expected pace shape up, doesn't help her chances. That was the big news this morning out of Churchill, that Serengeti Empress is confirmed for the race. We're going to be following all of these final developments into the Kentucky Oaks at Churchill Downs. Horses training here in Kentucky, horses training at Santa Anita. Of course, we're eagerly awaiting Bellafina's arrival back in Kentucky. We'll take a look at the Oaks field after they draw the race next week here on the Oaks Countdown.